YouTube says it has had enough of vaccine misinformation on its site.
And false stories from phony sites to run circles around major news outlets.
Many people don't know the difference between something real and something created to deceive them.
Open your eyes.
If you've ever had this feeling that something was terribly wrong with the world that we live in, but you couldn't figure out just what it was, then you've come to the right place. Secret societies, mystery religions, and the Illuminati have been controlling our reality since the beginning of time. But not anymore, because there is an awakening happening, and you are about to become a part of it. Wake up, because this is a call for an uprising.
We're catching people before they ever start. We're catching people before they ever start.
Imagine a world without murder.
I lost my best friend.
I lost my aunt.
I lost my dad.
I lost my father.
I lost my wife.
Just 6 years ago, the homicide rate in this country had reached epidemic proportions. It seemed that only a miracle could stop the bloodshed. But instead of one miracle, we were given 3, the precognitives. Within just 1 month under the Precrime program, the murder rate in the District of Columbia was reduced 90%.
They were going to be waiting for me in the car.
He was going to rape me.
I was going to be stabbed.
Right here.
Within a year, Precrime effectively stopped murder in our nation's capital.
In the 6 years we've been conducting our little experiment, there hasn't been a single murder.
And now Precrime can work for you.
We want to make absolutely certain that every American can bank on the utter infallibility of this system, and to ensure that what keeps us safe will also keep us free.
Precrime? It works.
It works.
It works.
It works.
It works. It works.
On Tuesday, April 22nd, vote yes on the National Precrime Initiative.
This is a call for an uprising. Welcome to today's show, Operation Pumpkin Day. Supposedly, the FBI averted a potential ISIS-inspired terror attack. And of course, when people hear that, they naturally say, well, that's a good thing. The FBI is doing its job. There could have been an ISIS attack on American soil. But you need to read between the lines, because the government puts these things out there because they're normalizing pre-crime. They're normalizing this new term that they're using called being radicalized online. And this eventually leads to people like me and you being arrested for even having videos like this or speaking about some of the things the government is doing in regards to weather modification or in regards to AI Palantir surveillance. Speaking against the government will be the new terrorist, but people aren't paying attention to that, because when people hear stories like this, they begin to think to themselves, well, that's a great thing. Maybe we could start arresting people before they ever commit a crime on suspicion of actual terrorism, which most people would agree with, right? If the government was able to prevent a terror attack, even though they carried out 9/11, if they were able to prevent it ahead of time because they found out that these guys were plotting in secret and they had weapons and bombs and all these other things and they arrested them, everybody would cheer. And they'd say, well, why didn't they do that? Or why couldn't they have done that? Or they did do it, and that's wonderful. So they want you to think in terms of ISIS and terror groups. But what nobody pays attention to is the fact that every single day, they're starting to change what a terrorist is in America. They're still using these Al-Qaeda ISIS stories because they're conditioning people into getting used to people being arrested for speaking in online chat rooms or in online discords and in online forums. But remember, every single day they're shifting what a terrorist is. It's moving from Al-Qaeda and ISIS to Democrat and Republican, because they're convincing Republicans, that's what the alt-right media is working on every day, that the real domestic terrorists are Democrats. They're the ones who are violent. They're the Antifa people. They're the ones who are really radicalizing transgender people. And these shooters are all trans, right? And we need to go after them ahead of time. And of course, Democrats look at Republicans the same way. They look at them and they say, oh man, January 6th, these redneck MAGA people, they're dangerous. They want to own all these weapons and all these guns. They're the new terrorists to me. And eventually, of course, that's what this is going to lead to. These stories will start shifting from being about Muslim, Al-Qaeda, ISIS groups to radicalized MAGA groups and radicalized Antifa groups who are talking online. And one side will cheer when the other side gets arrested without even saying, wait a minute, We're arresting people because they happen to own guns and they happen to be speaking online with anti-government sentiment. I'm going to play this story for you here. And you may have seen this story. You may see stories like it. You may say, well, if there's people here on American soil who aren't even American citizens and they're talking about carrying out an event, they should be arrested ahead of time. But that's not the point. The point is that the more they normalize pre-crime, the more they normalize how the FBI is raiding people's homes before any crime is committed, and just because the people happen to own guns and just because the people happen to speak against the government rhetoric, well, the next thing you know, it's going to be people like me and you who are getting arrested. Listen to this and look at the little points in there they make about being radicalized online, and of course how Donald Trump points out that this is just the beginning, that this is the start. We're going to catch people before they ever start. Think about that. That's pre-crime.
Tonight, an alleged Halloween terror attack foiled. FBI agents yelling in Arabic, "This is the FBI," warning residents of this home that they have a warrant and to come out. There they go. Video showing the agents using flashbangs, then storming into the house in Dearborn, Michigan.
It's pretty scary because we have a lot of relatives around this neighborhood.
FBI Director Kash Patel announcing the raids on social media, writing the FBI stopped a potential terrorist attack before it could unfold, calling it a violent plot tied to international terrorism. 5 young individuals were taken into custody involving a plot to conduct an attack in the U.S. that has a connection to ISIS. 3 senior law enforcement officials tell NBC News, saying the suspects had discussed carrying out some sort of terror attack around Halloween, or what they allegedly referred to as Pumpkin Day. Agents seen searching through the homes. Hours later, and we're still seeing agents walking in and out of that home, sometimes walking out with items and loading them into vehicles. The suspects are naturalized citizens from a Middle Eastern country who had access to firearms and firearm training. 2 senior law enforcement officials briefed on the investigation tell NBC News. Do you know the people who were in that house?
Yep, friendly neighbors, good neighbors of ours. Nothing that I could speculate on them.
President Trump weighing in on the investigation this afternoon.
We're catching people before they ever start.
As Michigan's Attorney General expressed relief.
I can just say that I'm very, very grateful for the FBI's work in protecting the community and keeping people safe.
And Shaquille Brewster joins us now from Dearborn. Shaq, you have new reporting this evening about how long the FBI was tracking these suspects?
Yeah, Peter, at least for the past couple of days, senior law enforcement officials telling NBC News that there's indication to believe that some of these suspects may have been radicalized online. Meanwhile, on this Halloween evening, both local and federal law enforcement saying tonight that there is no current threat to the public.
We're catching people before they ever start.
Some of these suspects may have been radicalized online.
We're catching people before they ever start. We're catching people before they ever start.
So the operation itself is very limited in what they've actually given to us, right? Oh, they happen to be trained in using guns. Well, there's a lot of people who are trained to use guns. People go to the range all the time. Technically, they're trained to use guns, right? And Donald Trump saying we're catching people before they ever start. That's the big thing people need to pay attention to. Take ISIS out of this story and put yourself into the antagonist in the story. You and your friends speaking online saying, well, when Biden was president, how he's got to go, how he's the worst, how these Democrats are psychopaths, how these Democrats are terrorists. And then start thinking about how this type of stuff is going to be used against you for speaking and thinking things online that the government doesn't want you to think, because that's where we're headed. Catching people before they ever start. Arresting people before they commit a crime. And they've convinced people already that this is a good thing, and they're working on this day in and day out. So you may have remembered the story in Minnesota, right? We had the trans shooter. These are the big government psyops that they're rolling out. Shooters going to churches, going to Christian schools, going after Christian children, going after people who believe in Jesus Christ, right? Of course, government playing into conservatives. Normally, the conservatives, when they would hear these school shooting stories, they would question if they're real or not. They'd say, is it a gun grab story? Is it some type of story so that the government could take away more of our rights? Well, when it happens at a church and they carry these out at, Christian schools, well, suddenly the MAGA people are just saying, we need to do something about it. We need to stop it because our people are getting shot. And that's where we first started hearing people like Melania Trump suggesting her big idea to prevent future shootings. This was the quote from her when that Psyop happened. The tragic mass killing in Minnesota illuminates, love the word, can't make it up, the need for preemptive intervention in identifying potential school shooters. Early warning signs are often evident, with many individuals exhibiting concerning behaviors and making violent threats online prior to their actions. To prevent future tragedies, it is crucial we look into behavioral threat assessments across all levels of society, beginning in our homes, extending through school districts, and of course, social media platforms. Being aware of these warning signs and acting quickly can save lives and make American communities safer. Everybody should be concerned with this. Everybody who listens to this channel or channels like it. Because I might be sitting here and I never advocate for violence or shooting or killing, but eventually, look what they're convincing people of already in this world. They've convinced people that there was an assassination attempt on Trump. They're convincing people that they're born in the wrong bodies, and these people go along with it. They don't even need to hear people like me and you. We could sit there and say, well, we never called upon it, but they say, yeah, but the tone in your voice. Yeah, but the stuff that you talked about, you were inciting it without saying it, and you should be looked at as a threat. Because you have a big following and people are listening to you and you're speaking against the government and you're exposing things that we think are crazy, like weather warfare or all these events being government-created false flag psyop operations. They will convince people that this preemptive intervention is a good thing, and they're already starting. Because this psyop has gotten so bad that the conservatives have fallen right into it. After the Minnesota shooting, we had Gideon founder Aaron Cohen. I covered this when it had happened, who came on Fox News. And this is a guy, soldier, actor, writer, spy. He has his own IMDb page, of course. He was trained by the IDF, and he has Gideon, which is just another one of these AI power threat prediction programs like Palantir, which we'll get into. And here they were on the news talking about how we can use algorithms to arrest these people before they ever even commit a crime. That, ladies and gentlemen, is pre-crime.
So he clearly planned this. He had the manifesto going live on YouTube at a certain time. Clearly there was some thought that went into this, Aaron. I mean, and nobody was tipped off.
This is 100% domestic terrorism. I'm going to tell you why, Trace. This is ideologically motivated. This was tactical, and this was intentional. 80% of these domestic lone wolf terrorists post some type of grievance online. Matthew Crooks, 900 posts between 2020 and 2022. The D.C. shooter, 900-page manifesto. 100% domestic terrorism, and I bet you, in addition to that manifesto, there's a very significant breadcrumb daisy trail leading back who knows how many weeks, months, or even years. This is the new face of terrorism. This is no longer post-9/11 terror organized Al-Qaeda, Trace. These are radicalized online lone wolves, and the United States is 10 years behind these threats. We need to catch up.
And I wanted to get your opinion on the breaking news here, because the First Lady, Melania Trump, just called for more, and this is quoting here, preemptive intervention when it comes to IDing school shooters. It's kind of your bailiwick, Aaron.
Trace, as you know, correct, 100%, and she's 100% correct. I am now about to launch Gideon, America's first ever AI threat detection platform, built specifically for law enforcement. It scrapes the internet 24/7 using an Israeli-grade ontology to pull specific threat language and then routes it to local law enforcement. It's a 24/7 detective. It never sleeps, and it's going to get us in front of these attacks.
Would it have picked up on this, do you think?
100%. I wish my program would already be up. We're not launching until next week. I've got a dozen agencies on board, Trace. I just unloaded a major Northeast agency with over 2,700 sworn. This is America's early warning system.
So not one person blinked when they heard that story. Not one conservative said, hey, wait a minute. Wait a minute. We need to stop. All they saw was a guy who thinks he's a woman, who's growing his hair out, who's probably getting his penis cut off like John Bobbitt, who wants to be a woman. He's got mental health problems. So we should have been looking online at what he was writing, because we could have stopped that event from actually happening. They're convincing people on both sides of the aisle that if people online are speaking differently, if they're saying things that sound like it could potentially be dangerous, that they should be arrested and apprehended beforehand. Now think of all the other stuff going on. We know Homeland Security is pushing pre-crime, right? That's what's going on right now. These were the stories that come out now after the school shootings. When prayers aren't enough, why insurers are turning to AI to stop the next mass shootings. And we have Palantir partnering with ICE, right? ICE, clouded in mystery, how ICE became a rogue agency that does Trump's bidding. And everyone hears that and they go, oh yeah, ICE should be allowed to go after these immigrants because all the conservatives are stuck in the immigration psyop, thinking that, well, the Democrats let all these immigrants in and we need to get rid of them because they're going to vote for the Democrats because the Democrats are the ones allowing them in. Both sides are allowing them in. The Republicans and the Democrats are working together, allowing these people in so they could bring in things like a digital ID and bring in a surveillance state, which is everything Trump is doing with the data centers and Palantir. So clouded in mystery how ICE became a rogue agency, and Donald Trump tells ICE they could break into homes without warrants. And these people cheer for it because they're like, well, they should break into homes of people who shouldn't be, they don't deserve to be in our country anyway, right? Meanwhile, ICE is using Immigration OS by Palantir to track immigrants' movements. And people hear that and they say, that's okay, that's great. They don't realize they're using it on all of us, okay? Trump has tapped Palantir to compile data on Americans. Palantir is a tentacle of the Mossad. Palantir is now a tentacle of the United States government. And they're trying to present Palantir to you as if Palantir is a wonderful company created by Peter Thiel and Alex Karp that in the future is going to stop school shootings and things like that. But the reality of the matter is that Palantir has things like the Gotham Predictive Policing Program, which is Gotham software created by Palantir, used by law enforcement agencies to analyze large volumes of data and predict criminal activity. The system uses AI and machine learning to find patterns and link suspects, locations, and events, guiding police resources to targeted areas or individuals before any crime occurs. So think about what they will do in the future. Think about what we've gotten to in 2025 with politics, with how Democrats and Republicans can't even talk to one another anymore. Vaccinated, unvaccinated. There's so much division going on. Black, white, now immigrants and what. All this division and how they're twisting in people's minds who a threat is, who's a terrorist. Well, Democrats, they're the ones who are violent. They're the ones carrying these events out. They're the ones who should be looked at as domestic terrorists. Well, 4 years prior to that, all we heard about, we had Biden come on TV, giving speeches talking about the unvaccinated being dangerous threats to citizens in America. We had Biden coming on TV talking about domestic terrorists being Trump supporters. And people are going, what? And they just kept saying it and saying it and saying it. Now it's beaten into people's heads. So Democrats look at conservatives as domestic terrorists, and now conservatives are getting the same thing. They're getting convinced that all of these Democrat people, they're all pushing trans ideologies onto the kids. They're coming into our schools. They're carrying out school shootings, targeting Christians. They need to be watched and monitored. So let's use Palantir on them. And then they say, whoop, we're going to put in a Democrat power. Let's start using this technology against conservatives with conservative ideologies. And it all goes back to behavioral control. And what Larry Fink and Palantir and what all these big corporations have been talking about. They're going to force behaviors because they're going to force you to not listen to content like this anymore. They're going to make you afraid to listen. They're going to make you afraid to think, and they're going to make you afraid, of course, to speak. Because you're going to say, I don't want to talk about those things anymore because I don't want to go to jail. I don't want to be arrested for talking about HARP and talking about weather modification or whatever the topic is, questioning if a school shooting actually occurred, right? Which is part of the entire Alex Jones Psyop trial. To make you say, I'm not going to question if these school shootings actually happen. I'll just take whatever the news tells me as fact, and I won't say a word because I don't want to lose trillions of dollars, supposedly, right? They are forcing behaviors. And now when you hear stories like this, that's what you should think about. You shouldn't hear this and go, oh, the FBI is doing its job. It arrests these people because they were speaking online about Pumpkin Day. Huh? I mean, like they didn't know what Halloween was. Like Pumpkin Day was a real code word that the government wouldn't figure out what they meant by Pumpkin Day. And they had access to firearms and firearm training. Well, a lot of people have access to firearms. But thankfully, the FBI went in and arrested them beforehand. That's all the evidence they give you, nothing else. Nobody goes, well, let's see what they're saying online. Let's decide if they should have been arrested or not. Were they picking specific people? Did they say, we're going to go to this place on this day and go after this guy and that politician and this guy and who and what? Nothing. They were just talking online. Everybody accepts the story like, oh, great. We stopped a potential terrorist attack from actually happening without saying, wait a minute. These people who are online, we don't even know what they were saying. The government just tells us they're saying these things and makes it very vague. And we're supposed to cheer for the government for arresting people before they actually did anything. They could have been online, fantasy role-playing for all we know, which is strange, but I mean, this is the thought police, and this is giving the government more and more power. Trump says this is just the beginning. This is what the future looks like, right? We're catching people before they ever start. Trump is using Palantir and bringing in Precrime, and eventually this is going to be used on all of us. 99.9% of people hear this story and they'll think it's great. They'll make, ISIS was going to carry something out. Thank God they did that. We could have had another September 11th event. But those are the same people who believe that two planes flew into two towers, right? And aluminum went through steel and caused the buildings to fall. Then randomly, of course, we had other buildings go down, which had a lot of evidence inside of there that they want you to hear about. And they didn't ask any questions. They accepted the narrative, and they thought it was a guy sitting in a cave over the middle of nowhere. And it took them 10 years to go and find him. And they just believe it. They believe what they're told. So they hear stories like this, and they go, well, if it could have prevented that, then it's a good thing they arrested him ahead of time. Right. And just wait till carbon laws are in place, right? And you're online like in China and you're saying, hey, you know what? This is bullcrap. They turned my air off in the middle of the summer. It's 90 degrees. I got 3 babies at home. And they show up at your door and they say, what'd you say online? You're under arrest for questioning Big Brother. We'll turn your air off when we want. We'll turn your heat on when we want and off when we want. We'll turn your fridge off, your electricity. Don't you dare. And people will see that type of stuff. And then their behaviors will be controlled because they'll say, I'm not going to say anything because I don't want them arresting me. I'll just be a good little puppet. I'll nod my head, and when the government comes to my door and tasers my nuts, I'll smile and say, yes, sir, may I have another. So Operation Pumpkin Day, give me an utter break. The more they put stories like this out there, the more it subliminally conditions people into, oh yeah, they were arrested ahead of time for speaking online, and they could have posed a dangerous threat. And the more people accept it and don't push back, the more these stories are going to start turning to, oh, well, Democrat trans people were online, just like at Charlie Kirk's thing or just like at another shooting in Minnesota. And we could have stopped, and the government did. And they went in and they stopped this guy in a manifesto on YouTube. He was talking about it. And they arrested him. Everyone's going to cheer. And they go, good, because there could have been a school shooting at a Christian academy. Right? And then a story will come out about how some MAGA guy was going to go to some transgender, club on a Friday night and carry something out. And they'll all go, good. Thank God they arrested him ahead of time. And we'll continue to see the lines blurred and our rights stripped and people being okay with the government using pre-crime artificial intelligence to arrest and apprehend people. Frightening to be alive in 2025. I thank everybody for being here. I hope you're all doing well. God bless you and your families as always.